Also, a quick note, which I thought was genius, and this was a problem for me and Rob going through the game because we were playing through it for an episode of Gaming Theater Presents, and he's not there. He didn't show up, and we had to die 4 or 5 times because Achilles wasn't there. People in the house leave.
Yeah, they sometimes just aren't there. You don't get to talk to them every time.
I like that they're all mad at Zagreus for just bailing, and then they do it to you all the time.
Well, they're usually at least doing their
jobs. Sure, they have jobs and important things to do, and Zagreus is just a bum that lives around his dad's house. But
okay,
still.
Now hold on. Zagreus tried. Okay, Zagreus tried to do it, but his father fired him because he wasn't good at it.
Just a reminder, this is a spoiler-heavy podcast. Different series that require a spoiler warning will be in the description. Although, let's face it, it's mostly the video game Hades.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Gaming Theater Podcast. Today's episode is going to be a very special one where we've teamed up with the Muse of Mythology to do sort of an exploratory-ness of the video game Hades and how mythology has been integrated into the game of Hades. Now, before we get started, let me introduce ourselves to the guests and everyone that's going to be there today. And once again, my name is Leo. I'm your host, the Geek Scorpio.
How's everybody doing today? I'm DJ, or Davis, depending on who you are to me. And I am a co-host of the podcast Muses of Mythology.
And I am the other co-host of the podcast Muses of Mythology. DJ and I are siblings, and we discuss how ancient myths have become part of modern pop culture, often through the lens of Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson and the Olympians, but sometimes through whatever piece of pop culture decided, hey, you know what's fun? Greek shit.
Yeah.
And I am Rob. I am a game design student, and I also run the Gaming Theater RPG podcast, currently doing ACPD, where our players play as police in a fantasy setting.
All right. Now, before we get started, let's move on to the magical merch booth. Here we are at the magical merch booth. Now, today's magical merch booth is kind of weird because everyone has sort of already described what they needed to be with it. And with that, the magical merch booth is now a weird combination of both a tabletop RPG and Greek mythology. There's probably a Greek mythology-based tabletop RPG somewhere out there.
There is.
Yes, there's lots. One's called Aegon. It's very fun. I highly recommend it.
If you guys get the chance, if you want to, there'll be links in the description for our friends at Muse of Mythology. Also, check out more about the Gaming Theater RPG. We'll put links in the description.
Thank you.
No problem. Unlike last time, we're just going to get up and go. So, back to the show. So with this, going through the game Hades, and Hades is an amazing game, a huge hit, and had been very well developed. And it's a game design studio that has made hit after hit after hit, Supergiant Games. Now with that, with Hades particularly, this thing that I noticed, which is the premise of this podcast episode, is that the actual mythology of the characters and the storyline for it gets intertwined very well into the video game itself. Kind of like the video game version of an old adage for film, show, don't tell. In this case, you experienced it through the game, as that's the game's medium, but you still they have a lot of aspects of the mythology in there. So with this, we're going to go through some of the mythological and the game design principles behind this. One of the first things that's on there is going to be the first person you get to meet in Hades, Zagreus.
Yeah. Which,
from my research on it, Zagreus is kind of the lesser of the lesser known gods that are in there. Mm-hmm. He's not even 5th tier. You got top tier, first tier gods, what everybody knows: Aphrodite, Zeus,
the 12,
Hades.
When I first started playing, I legit thought they had made up Zagreus because they didn't want to use an existing Greek god.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Supergiant team really dives into the Orphic myths, which are not like the Homeric versions that are usually the ones that we pull from, the ones from that classical Greece. Zagreus is a really, really deep cut character. And I think that was smart, because going in, like you just said, Rob, a lot of gamers oh, this is an original character. So you don't come with a bunch of assumptions about who this character is or what they want or what they should be. You're just willing to go along with learning about them through the game. And in terms of like incorporating like obscure myth for this kind of medium, I think that was incredibly a wise decision to do.
From what I could tell, from what the research I could pull up on Zagreus himself, which until Hades came out, there was very little, even on the internet, and most of my mythology books don't even talk about Zagreus that much. And it's kind of like, and you'll bump into that in different mythologies. In Egypt mythologies, there's a lot of gods and such that are just in the Book of the Dead, that are a one-shot god that's in the Book of the Dead and never mentioned again.
Yeah.
There's literally a god, I can't remember his name, but they describe him as basically a guy with 2 feet and a sheet ghost. Like someone just put a blanket over his head and just, like a lousy Halloween costume, go. But he's mentioned in the Book of the Dead. Zagreus, ironically enough, is the god of rebirth and the god of regeneration.
Yeah.
Which I find is ironic, because if you ever die in Hades, you come back.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that was probably the ultimate reason why they did pick Zagreus, is because part of the game design is that you're going to be repeating, the cycle over and over and over again. You're going to be doing this more than once. That's the intended gameplay loop. It's really not feasible for most players to be able to beat Hades on the first playthrough. And so, since you're supposed to die anyway, it makes sense that they pick a character who dies a lot.
But outside of that, I think that's about it for Zagreus, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. He is what we can gather, because like Zagreus isn't well mentioned, so he's not well documented, so there wasn't a lot of oral traditions passed down that were recorded. But if you want to boil it down to like the most simplistic version that I can present to you now, Zagreus was pre-Dionysus, kinda, wherein he was like the child of Hades or the child of Persephone and Zeus. Mythology.
Yeah.
And then Hera found out, I think Zeus, it was a child of Zeus and Persephone, and Hera found out and was like, fuck that, and sent the Titans to tear the baby apart. And then essentially Dionysus is a somewhat reborn Zagreus when Zeus cuts the baby Dionysus out and puts him in his leg. Like, it is super weird. Like, it doesn't really make sense, especially when you recall like that the Greek mythology was like religion, and these would serve a purpose to like teach or educate or explain why the world is the way it is. And it just hearing that myth is like, but what am I supposed to gain from that? What do I take away from this story? And the answer
Well,
is,
it wasn't all too popular.
but it is, the game does a great job of Dionysus actually, because he's one of the gods you get boons from and get to talk to, and he tells Zagreus, hey Zagreus, I hear you're close with Orpheus, right? You should tell him that you and I are connected and just see what he thinks. And so Zagreus does, and one of the songs Orpheus starts to sing is this song about Zagreus and Hera and Diana, and it's so funny. Because Zag later on is like, hey, I made that up, right? I'm kidding. And he's like, oh, you're so humble.
I can't tell if Orpheus is fucking with him.
I think Orpheus is fucking with him.
Yeah.
Like, I genuinely think Orpheus is fucking with him.
Like, but
I kind of hope he is.
he could also just not be and being like, yeah, he helped me out.
You can't. Yeah.
He's done this great thing. He got me scot-free. I can now go see Eurydice. So, this is pretty great.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, songs and poems of the time, they weren't meant to be historically accurate. They were meant to be entertaining.
Yeah.
So
yes.
There's a 70s band called Lynyrd Skynyrd. In theory, and for most historians, that what they've looked at with Lynyrd Skynyrd, a lot of their hit songs are things that happened to the lead singer of Lynyrd Skynyrd. So he has a song that goes, give you 3 steps, mister, give me 3 steps to the door, because someone's pointing a .38 revolver at him, and he's telling him, oh man, hey, how about you just give me 3 steps, more, I'm gonna head out this door.
I'm just gonna leave, yep.
Yeah, and then he's like, man, that's a cool lyric. I wish this didn't happen. But yeah, Orpheus is in the chamber. Now what's interesting, and I think this is done on purpose, you don't get to meet anybody in the chamber the first time you play. You don't. The game's called Hades. You don't even meet Hades the first day.
Yeah.
No. The first person that you meet, I think, is Skelly, which I honestly, there's not really anything for it. Just
no, it's Athena.
It's Athena.
You start as he's already jumped out the window.
Mhm. Yeah, you just go with Athena, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, honestly, at this point, let's talk about the gods and their boons and their pettiness, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Athena is the goddess of wisdom and a war goddess, and people usually tie her into wisdom, but she is a war goddess.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about a concept of war, at least especially with the Greeks, their origination was battle strategy, trickery, using your intelligence for
Mm-hmm.
war, or the brutality, the sheer might, strength, and skill to fight,
Mm.
which is where the line separates from Athena and Ares.
Yeah.
But Athena is also defense. So it is the best boon you get the first time. Hey, let me try to protect you from, all of Tartarus here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dash shield, dash shield, dash shield.
Dash shield, dash shield.
Dash shield is definitely probably my favorite dash. It's a very good one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just like from a gameplay perspective, that makes a lot of sense that you would get the defense boost on your first run of a very, very difficult game.
Mm-hmm.
Because, without that, you're probably going to die pretty quickly. I mean, you're probably going to die pretty quickly even with it.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
face it.
Yeah.
But, it coming from the goddess Athena, narratively speaking, this tells the player this is going to be hard. You can't just rush in. You need to think about what you're doing. You need to strategize a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, almost all of Athena's boons are defensive in nature. Most of them are, like, that's why we have the joke dash shield, because
Mm-hmm.
you can put things to deflect enemies or reduce your damage for it, and that's Athena's whole jam.
Yeah.
After that, I think all the other gods just sort of come in at random, except for Demeter, right?
Yeah, you don't get
Yeah.
Demeter until you get out of the underworld for the first time. You don't have to like beat Hades, but you just have to get out and hit the surface, and then she
Yeah.
sees you.
Which also makes sense because Demeter is the seasons, right?
Yep.
Yes. And she is not in like the narrative of the game, she is not hanging out with the other Olympians at this time. So she
She's
wouldn't
just
have
wreaking havoc down on Earth and just making it real cold. People are not happy.
no. So she is just distant because and it's so good. I love this game so much because I think as you're talking about Leo, how it is play don't tell. And the game never once sits you down and is like, all right, so here's Athena and she's goddess of this and this, and here's Demeter and she's this and this. And that's like, if you know Greek mythology, you know their deal jumping in. This is pretty, like, not everything's a crazy deep cut,
Mhm.
but the game will still go through and in time through the dialogue that you have with the characters directly or talking to other characters about those, that is how you learn about their natures, their like interpersonal relationships with their characters. Like Zagreus meets Demeter well before he meets Persephone, his mother, who he's trying to like meet, and he does not know that Demeter is his grandmother for a long time, and it takes until I think Demeter says that her granddaughter is Persephone for him to be like, oh, I gotta, cool, no doubt. But Zagreus can never actually respond to any of the gods. They're just sending him boons and messages, but he can never talk back except to
Yeah.
Hermes.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
Hermes is the only one who's actually there.
Yeah. Hermes is the one running.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hermes is the god of the messenger god and the god of trade, right?
Yeah.
A lot. Trade, thieves, and stuff. Hermes is also in
Travelers.
Travelers. He, like, in this one, like, Hermes is essentially like when you get a boon from Hermes, it's as if he is physically there talking to you because you can respond to Hermes if he asks you, do you want me to shut up? You can tell him yes or no. And that makes sense also through mythology because Hermes was one of the gods whose job it was to bring souls of the dead to the underworld.
Yeah.
There was a couple different gods who did this. For example, you have Thanatos, who's god of death, fucking the Grim Reaper right there. And it's really cool how the game like explores the lore that way. And that's a blink and you miss it. Like if you're not paying it, like it doesn't outright say Hermes is there, but when you suddenly realize you have the opportunity to respond to him for the first time, it's like, oh wait, this is different. And there's so many little things they do. to make each character feel like they are unique, even if you never get to have full conversations with most or any of the gods. Well, the Olympians.
Yeah. Demeter, when you get any boons from Demeter, because it's winter up there, all your boons are freezing and usually cold base.
Ice
Yeah.
Grandma!
Ice Grandma. Hermes, which I love, is all about speed and just running, because that's what Hermes does. That's how he moves around. He just gets down there. Gotta go. And every time he usually ends his conversation, it's more of, I gotta go. I got other things to do. Later. Ares is the god of war that you bump into, and Ares is all about
just damage.
I guess a boon that they call Doom.
Yeah.
Doom. I like that mechanic. I've seen it in a couple of other roguelikes.
Doom actually was like my least favorite boon to get, honestly.
Really?
I like Doom in specific situations. I don't typically get it. I'll take Dionysus's hangover before I get Doom.
Yeah.
But if I have if I'm using the gauntlets, I'll almost always pick up Doom on the special if I can, because I'm not using the specials as frequently, obviously, as I'm using the basic attacks. So the special is one hit, and then it hits him again. So once the Doom goes through, I do the special again while dashing, and it continues that combo.
Yes, the reason I disliked Doom is because there was a delayed effect, and I never liked when my damage was delayed. My thinking as a gamer is essentially, I can hit this guy, and then 2 seconds later, more damage can happen, or I can get a boon where just more damage happens right meow.
Right meow.
Yeah. Why would I want to wait?
But it's not as much damage.
Yeah, and there's probably math behind it that makes Doom more worth it. But when, I'm surrounded by 20, 30 guys and I'm fighting them all off at this, I'm not really stopping to think about, is this doing more damage? This is the most of it. It doesn't feel as good as the instant gratification of lightning bolts right now,
Yeah.
I actually didn't like the lightning bolts.
And that's more of a play style versus, which honestly is one of the game Hades' biggest strengths. You can play towards your style. If you want to be more defensive.
There's so many different kinds of play style.
Yeah, and you can mix and match, and it's amazing. But with Ares, and that makes sense for Doom, because essentially it's all about bleeding effect. Yeah. And Ares is all about cutting people.
Yep.
Yeah.
In fact, Ares, I think Ares' art, he's carrying something like 12 different swords on him.
Yeah. He's a big fan of Zagreus, because you're causing so much damage. I'm so excited for you to coming out with me. They're all so excited because Zagreus wants to get out of the underworld to find his mother, and Nyx knows he cannot do it alone. So she tells the Olympians he wants to come to Mount Olympus and see you. And they're like, yeah! So, none of them really know what's actually going on, we think. But they're all, so excited for him to, come out. And, come hang out. And it's great.
We got a party for you.
Yeah, it's party. Let's talk about Dionysus first.
Let's go with Dionysus. Dionysus is, straight up, you give people a hangover. You're partying it up. Because in Greek mythology, a lot of gods are bitter towards a lot of the other gods on it. And so sometimes in the game, you get to an opportunity where you can have two boons. But you got to piss off one guy to get the other boon for it. And they always feel slighted.
Yep.
And my favorite part about that, though, is when you deal with it with Dionysus, because after he's like, I can't believe you stood me up, you picked this other god, you know what, rain hellfire. You go through the fight, you manage to barely survive. We're cool, right? I'm sorry, bro. We're cool, right?
Yeah.
I just got mad.
Yeah.
Yep. If you survive the barrage they send your way, all of a sudden you're friends again. And you're just down here like, oh my god, this actually means something. And it's also such an interesting way, because how easy the gods are offended, how dare you pick them and not me? I want to kill you. We're BFFs, it's cool. But that matters to you. That matters so much to you as the player and to Zagreus, because if you die because they got pissy that you picked one boon over theirs, you have to restart. You have to go through all this. It is literally no skin off their nose what actually happens to you, Zagreus, while they're all invested in wanting to help you, but they each want to help for oh, well, let's get you out of the underworld. That's dark, horrible place. I can't believe you've had to survive it, like, be down there for so long. Oh, we'll party great up there. And Zeus over here being like, oh, we can start telling people you're my son once you get up here. Like, they all wanted Zagreus to come, but for their benefit, for their interest, for their personal, like, distractions and stuff.
Yeah, honestly, like most of the conversations, it felt like they thought of Zagreus more as a fun novelty than a relative that they cared for. You know, it felt like it was not so much, you know, oh my gosh, you know, I can't believe you're suffering. It usually felt more like, hey, new god, that's neat.
Yeah. Just some new exciting distraction. Like, wow. I think in time, as you play the game, and because you can give like the ambrosia or the nectar and then ambrosia to increase like your relationship with them, that does, I think, deepen the dialogue relationships you have with the gods. And there are a couple that it does more genuinely feel like in time they become more invested in Zagreus as another god, another like being that, like, I guess specifically Artemis is the one I think they do this the best. It feels most intentional because her dialogue starts to be more like, oh, I feel like, I don't know, I can really be myself with you, and that's cool. I usually don't like get along with like other people that well, or like you should come hang out, like usually just me and the nymphs, but like, yeah, I think you're cool. I think we're friends. It's really cool to have friends, and you're my friend too, and I love that. I love cousin Artemis.
As much as I love it too. It's super fun. Zagreus is not talking to Artemis. Artemis is kind of talking to herself.
That's another thing, is that like that's what I was saying earlier. It's like there's no response, so I don't know why that's a good point. It's all of a sudden she's like, and you're my friend. It's like, are we friends?
I feel like it really come out of my shell with you. Like,
me.
yeah, like, can you come out of your shell? Like the moment Zagreus opens his mouth, she might be like, oh, this sucks.
That's honestly pretty realistic. I feel I have a lot of people that consider me close friends, and I barely say anything during our conversations just because I'm not the super talkative type.
Yeah.
But people love it when you listen. And
yes,
you know, when you're talking about the type of people that Artemis hangs out with, the other gods, I mean, how many of them are great listeners? The answer is zero.
Zero. To be interesting, you need to be interested. Let people think you love to talk about themselves. Let them tell you their interests. So, yes, that's a good point, DJ. But I still love it.
No, it's great. It's very fun. But it's still just like Zagreus is pulling a salesman, not talking about himself, letting Artemis talk about herself, and then she loves Zagreus now.
Yep.
Which is great because I done need that boon.
Yes, I do. In fact,
need the crit chance.
I do need to have my cousin on speed dial to use.
I need Artemis's call or Aphrodite's call, bro. Those are the two calls in this game that I will take every time.
Yeah, if I could have my grandma, I need Ice Grandma's cast, and then my cousin Artemis on speed dial. That would be great, actually.
Yeah, Dionysus, I always loved his ability with Hangover because Dionysus is the god of drink of wine. However, he's mine and madness, and especially early on, if you're wanting the one to help you just pound through people, Dionysus will do the damage.
Yeah, Dionysus does pretty good on that.
Even early on, he still carries me through Hades fights. Like, the amount of times that I've burned through Hades because I have like 20 stacks. Well, yeah, 20 stacks of hangover, and like my hangover, I have upgraded to a point to where it does 20 or 15 damage a stack. Like, ooh, here we go. You know, just burning the shit out of them. Like, hell yes.
Nice.
Now Artemis is all about crit hitting, and that makes sense because Artemis is the goddess of the hunt.
Yeah.
And one of my earlier playthroughs was with Artemis, and ironically, I got the bow. I got that crit hit chance to something like ridiculous.
Nice.
Do something like, what was it, like 400% damage, and it crits
50% of the time,
30% of the time. 10% of the time, it works 100% of the time.
Oh yeah.
But one of the useful things is that it turns your in the game you have the ability called cast, which just is a thing that Zagreus can do, which is gives you always an option, a range option if you ever need it.
Yeah,
is to take that cast fire. However, if you tie it with Artemis, it locks on.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, I mean, in a chaotic game like Hades, being able to fire and forget is one of the nicest things that you can get.
Nice.
The other two gods that we haven't bumped into is Poseidon. And Poseidon is all about knocking people back, but Poseidon's the god of the sea, which pushes boats all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the waves, the ferocity of the oceans.
Mhm.
And the
And,
treasures there within.
And the treasures. I love treasure bounties sometimes.
Can you just give me stuff? Sure. I found it at the bottom of the ocean. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I get used to this. Thanks, man.
I can use this to upgrade myself at my mirror, thanks.
Yeah.
I remember if you do it right, the Poseidon boons can really mess a guy up because you could push people into a wall to do damage and push them into a wall, into a trap to do damage.
Ah, trap damage.
Also, I love this concept of the fact that the traps that are there will hurt you and everyone else who gets involved.
It is
Yeah,
nice. I do
very
like trap
nice.
kills. I am very satisfied when I can pull off a trap kill, and very angry when I die via trap. It makes me so mad. I'm never more angry than when a trap gets me.
Can't relate. Never had a trap get me.
Fuck off.
Okay.
I got map awareness. It's one thing I'm very good at in games. I don't know what you're on about.
I'm not.
Not with all that chaos running around. I get clipped into those things. I don't
Yeah,
fall for a trap.
It's rarely the trap that kills me. The trap sets me up for the kill pretty often, though.
Yeah, I'll get hit by a trap, but I'm not gonna die to a trap.
I'm never down to 0 health when I'm near a trap. Down to 1? Yes. Then you also have Aphrodite, the goddess of love and charm. Hers is a weird one because you basically try to turn the enemy against you, but she also kind of has a weird... That cast shot I talked about also works like a shotgun when you get it with her for some reason.
Her cast is strange. I imagine it's like a heartbeat pulse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bam, bam.
But yeah, I've never been the biggest fan of hers. It's too close range.
Mm-hmm. And but Aphrodite lets you charm some of the enemies, which, depending on great for when you're fighting minions, not so great when you're dealing with the bosses though, because there's one guy.
Well, if you've got when you're fighting,
he stops attacking
Theseus
you. Like it's great.
If you got Theseus and Atyrus, that can be super fun to hit him with an Aphrodite charm.
Yeah. Hades also just stops attacking you when he's charmed for those 2 seconds. So it's nice to do that. It also does 300 or 3,500 damage.
Yeah, when you got it maxed out.
Like it's a nasty amount of damage.
Love hurts indeed.
Oh man! But also, I think she does do the most damage per hit. Is Aphrodite?
Yeah, in one hit, it's definitely Aphrodite does the most damage in one hit. Mm-hmm. I think Artemis's is more.
Yeah,
overall.
But Artemis is crit based, so
it's crit, and it sends out fucking 10. 10 each, dealing 300 or something like that.
Now we still got to talk about the god of the sky and the king of the gods, Zeus.
Yep. Lots of lightning.
I don't like him.
Zeus.
I don't like Zeus. I don't like any of Zeus's things. I never picked them up, except for maybe his cast. I do pick up his cast every now and again, early game, and then I immediately drop it for Festive Fog.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because all of his is lightning based, and he's kind of that one trick pony, but it's mostly chain lightning. If you can get it to chain about, it can go everywhere. Except his dialogue feels like he knows more than what he's telling you, which is kind of his thing.
He does. I think eventually, he really strongly hints at. Yeah, of course I knew.
Mm-hmm. Which, what is it? I love the dialogue between it because most of the other gods are, "Hey, Zag, you're a fun guy. You're new to the block," and Zeus is like, "Oh, this'll piss off my brother right quick."
So much if Zeus wanting to piss off Hades and be like, he's so angry. I don't know. He doesn't talk to us anymore. I'm sure I don't know what his problem is. I didn't do anything wrong. Hey, we should tell people you're my son.
I love the dialogue you get when you use Zeus's call during the Hades fight. Hades gets very angry.
I've never done that.
I want to now.
I did it because I think it was an achievement. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. That's funny. I like that.
I think one of my favorites is one of the early things that Zeus says to you is he's like, just let your dad know that we forgive him.
Yes!
And it's just the rudest thing you could possibly say. And then of course you can, because Hades, Zag is not exactly on great terms with Hades.
Yeah, so he's
So
like,
you
sure,
can
whatever.
go up and be like, hey, yeah, Zeus says they forgive you. And of course, Hades
is
gets super
so
pissed.
Mad.
Yeah.
Oh, so mad. Quick, doubling back, just quick aside on the using calls during boss battles.
Mhm.
I once used Dionysus call during the Theseus fight, and Theseus is like, "Oh, are you still mad about Ariadne?" Which is
Oh,
another great like lore cut for like listeners if you don't know, which I'm sure you do, but just in case. Ariadne was the princess of Knossos, King Minos' daughter. She's the one that helped Theseus navigate the labyrinth to kill the Minotaur, and he
Mhm.
promised he would take her back to his home and marry her. Instead, he abandons her on an island where
yeah.
Dionysus finds her and is like, "Oh," and then they end up getting married. I actually love. My take is like Dionysus sees her. He's like, "Oh no, I was at a party and now there's this crying woman. How I must make her laugh now. I will help. What do you need?" Because Himbo Dionysus is my favorite Dionysus.
Yeah,
So,
Mhm.
and then he takes her up to Olympus, and Aphrodite or Ariadne becomes like his wife
Mhm.
and a goddess. So
yeah.
big
If you
props.
if you
She
use
won the
Athena's
breakup.
call, if you use Athena's call in that fight, and it's just Theseus left, he says, "I thought I was your chosen." Just shit like that.
Oh.
No, that's
Or I thought you
Odysseus.
favored me or some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's
and
funny.
what is it? There's so there's little things like this that I love that's thrown on there. The last god that you not a god, but the last guy you can get a boon from is Chaos.
Chaos. Oh, it's so fun getting chaos. It's I have gone from wrecking shop all the way to Hades to getting my ass kicked by the Furies because I picked up a chaos boon too late in the Tartarus run and accidentally walked in there with a boon that I hadn't like evolved
Slows you
yet.
by 50%.
Or no, mine was slowing is bad. Take damage every time you attack. So I can't do
That is one
shit.
I never pick up because I'm using the gauntlets and it
Mhm.
attacks 20 times in 1 second. I
Yeah.
cannot do that. I will never pick up those. Doesn't matter what the reward is. I just won't do it.
I need sometimes it's like I'm trying to get the achievement or the prophecy for getting all the chaos boons, and I'm missing two, and one I'm missing often shows up on
With
that
the-
one, and I can't live long enough to evolve it. But when you do, they're pretty great, and oh, I love chaos. I love
Yeah, chaos is fun.
chaos as a
Mhm.
character.
Chaos is an old god, right? Like one of the first ones.
They're
It's
like,
not-
yeah, they are
primordial.
definition of primordial.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are from essentially it's like everything sprang from chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a primordial. Like calling it a deity it's weird in Greek mythology because primordial first, then titans, then gods in
Mhm.
that order.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, and from what I understand in the game, as far as the way Chaos explains it, I kind of just got stuck back here in Hades. Like his essence exists randomly in places.
Yeah, they are like when you jump into one of the chaos
Ports.
ports, my brain always thinks of it as I'm gonna go visit the Ninja Turtles. Tight manhole covers is what it looks like to me. You are no longer in the underworld. You are in chaos.
Yeah.
Essentially. So and they have been Zagreus is like they're lonely, yeah, but they don't realize they're lonely. Right. And I love that arc of chaos too, of like this primordial being from the beginning of it all, but they have grown so distant from their children. Like Nyx, right, is their
Mhm.
daughter. And Nyx and Chaos have not been in communication with each other in eons and eons. And so part of the arc is Zagreus convincing them that, hey, you both miss each other. Maybe you should just talk. And I love that so much. But Chaos is like interested in just they don't know what Zagreus is going to do, and that interests them. And so that's why they start reaching out and like having Zagreus come to them and get the boons and stuff because they're like, I never know what you're going to do, and that fascinates me. I like not knowing. And it's great. And then the way Chaos talks is so interesting, where they're not interested in small talk or like the idle chatter of the gods. You actually get to have conversations with Chaos, and they only like if I don't like they say like please like respond when they want Zagreus to talk to them, and it's charming and it's an interesting way to demonstrate this like ancientness in a way that in the Greek gods and the mythologies all of their deities and all of their like gods and all of their stories were in an essence human, and they had human wants and flaws and desires that we don't see often in so like monotheistic religions. Like that is not a factor, that is not a thing. Being human is a flaw in and of itself, and the gods of these various religions don't have that, but the Greek gods like did, and that was the inherent nature of them, even though they were gods or titans or primordials. And so seeing like Chaos just miss their kid and want to make connections again is such a delightful and endearing and real way to demonstrate that element of these characters from these lore in a way that's so positive. It's not always Zeus had an affair and Hera got jealous. Sometimes
Yeah.
the human flaw is I let the person I love slip away, and I miss that bond we once had with my family, and I'd love to have it back.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things is Chaos is which, as random as Hades can be with how much random number generator and RNG is in this, Chaos is your chance to gamble with an RNG.
Yeah.
Because unless you have the right item, you are always putting up some health to get down there. Whatever boon you want to get from Chaos, it's always a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
If you make it, you get to keep the prize. If you don't, enjoy it.
You're gonna get killed by the Furies again.
Yeah.
I mean, in a sense, because that really marks him very, like, one of the things I loved about Chaos is he's just so different from the other gods. I mean, not, the area that you meet him in feels foreign and weird and eldritch, which is weird because most of the game takes place in Hades, which to us humans should be weird and foreign and eldritch, but somehow Chaos's realm still feels strange. But then you go and you talk to them. The other gods, they just give you a boon because they're like, they want you to come up with them and they want you to party and whatever. For Chaos, if you want his boon, you've got to earn it. He's, he doesn't have that personal connection. He doesn't really have something he's trying to get out of you. He's just, okay, I'll give you something if you pay the price.
It's Chaos is so, I mean, to say chaotic is a bit reductive, but their thing, the special little token that you get from Chaos when you give them nectar for the first time is just primordial egg. Now it doesn't do shit. This does not help you in any way. It is not.
It does.
Okay, it will guarantee a Chaos Gate shows up. That's it. That's all it does. But it doesn't like give you more money. It doesn't make you faster. It doesn't give you an extra death defy or anything.
Also,
hold on, let me.
No, okay, it prevents you from taking damage from going into his gates.
Is that what it does? Okay.
Yes.
My point being. And then one day, Chaos is like, hey, you know what would be really funny? If you went and go beat your dad, but holding the egg. So you got to roll up to the big boss. Chaos is just like, I just think that'd be funny if that happened, if you did that thing. So you got to roll up to the big boss who gets to regenerate their health and is your final task after getting all the way up there. And you have to decide, well, I'm not going to show up with my extra death defy or the spiked collar from my dog that gives me extra life. Nope, I'm holding this egg that doesn't help me whatsoever. But if you do it, they're so happy. And so I did.
Oh,
I don't know how many times it took you, Darren, but first try.
I got real fucking lucky. I got it on the second go.
With the egg.
I got real fucking lucky.
So the thing is, that's also a point though. The eggs only gives you the ability to not pay the toll to get in there. You still got to do the challenge to get out to keep the thing.
Yeah.
And I have more that
tier 3 too.
Yeah.
It's like I was going through and I was leveling up all the items, and I still got to work through the gods items, but I got that one up pretty quick.
Yeah. So these are the ones who give you the boon, and then what you do next? At some point, you die the first time.
Yeah.
And that's what lets you get to the front door of the place. And I think that's genius. This is one of the few games that I've ever seen where your first death is what causes you to open up the game more.
Yeah.
There's only like a handful of games that actually do something like that.
There's definitely not a lot.
Valkyrie Profile is one that I remember because in that game you're a Valkyrie and you have to recruit people to fight in the war in Valhalla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So dying is the ticket to get in there. You want to get into this place? Yeah, you got to pay the toll.
Yeah. For me, it would be a Rogue Legacy. That
Mm-hmm.
game is just a goofy little game. When you die, that person that you were playing as in lore dies, and then you play as their descendant,
Mm-hmm.
and you get shown to the town in front of the castle that the person died in. That's your family's castle, but it's now taken over by Dracula, essentially. And you have to build up the town around it so you can upgrade yourself and actually beat the game. I never beat
Mm-hmm.
it because I didn't get all too
It's
far.
hard. But yeah, so here's you are in the House of Hades now for the
Mm-hmm.
first couple of times. And in the House of Hades, you bump into the man himself, Hades.
Mm-hmm.
And which is weird because Hades himself is basically two parts: Hades now and Hades then at the end of the game. Because Hades is a world of difference for it. But you can chit chat with him. Or you could be like me, ignore Hades, find a 3-headed big dog, and just want to pet
You
him.
just a pet. Yeah, you pet the dog. It's so good. It's Cerberus. Oh, I think DJ described it. The relationship is it's just a boy and his dog.
Just a
Like,
boy and his dog.
Well,
mm-hmm.
do you know why you have to have the contractor in that place?
Because Cerberus got so
Cerberus-
upset with. Oh, sorry, Leo. I'll let you tell the story.
No, you got it, go.
Well, the first time Zach decides he needs to get out, Cerberus got so distressed he tore the lounge apart. Like he tore the place apart, and now you've got poor Dusa trying to fix it, and you got the contractor to try to pay to fix things because he was just so upset. Poor boy.
And that's the thing in the storyline too. Zag left. Only Nyx knew Zag left.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. He didn't tell anybody. So
No, yeah.
basically, he slighted every friend he has down there.
Everyone in the house is so fucking pissed, and they don't. And then another thing, like another like play don't tell, is the nature of your relationship with all of these characters before the game starts. Like you kind of have to piece together what your deal is with Dusa, what your deal is with Thanatos, what your deal is with Megara, who are the three romance characters, but also like your relationship with Nyx, and like, oh, clearly you don't have a good relationship with Hades. What's up with that? And just kind of piecing together like where you were at before Zag jumped out the window, and then building from there.
And that's actually pretty standard, I think, for Supergiant games. And it's a storytelling thing. So one of the ways you reward gameplay, especially for Supergiant games, is with story. Story is the reason that you play. So that's how they reward you. And of course, they can't reward you with story if they give it to you all up front.
Yeah.
And so that forcing you to kind of piece it together yourself as the game goes on from these little bits and pieces that you're gathering, that's the reward. That's part of the gameplay.
Yeah. I think it's what made, because I am someone who gets very frustrated when I fail. A lot of things. It's issues with perfectionism. I'm worried that if I'm not perfect, people who love me will abandon me. I'm working on it in therapy. So dying in video games is not fun for me at all. And so DJ was actually shocked when I liked Hades, because he's over here like, you hate failing. You hate when you die in Kingdom Hearts. You're dying 1,000 times in this game. Why do you like it? It's like, well, I play games for story, and I don't like it when I die, because when you die, it means you don't get more story. But in Hades, you have to die. You have to keep dying, because even if by some way you were able to magically run straight to the end and somehow beat Hades on your very first run and get out, you don't have any idea why you did that. You don't know exactly what Zagreus is trying to do until you've died, I think once or twice, and you get that cutscene where he discovers the letter from Persephone and realizes like the game doesn't work if you never die. You never get to help Orpheus and Eurydice. You don't help Achilles and Patroclus. You don't help Nyx and Chaos. You don't get closer with any of the members of the house. You don't do anything if you don't die. And I think that's so remarkable.
Yeah, and it's like I said, so because story's your reward, traditionally speaking, and I don't necessarily want to put down people who like narrative games, but generally speaking, if you're the type of gamer that is playing a game for a story, you're probably not super great at difficult games. Yeah, you certainly could be, but statistically speaking, you're probably not. So Hades is very unusual in that it actually rewards you for dying. You know, which most games don't. But so you die, and then you get the reward of more story.
Yeah, it's doesn't feel bad or frustrating to die. That's the nicest thing that Hades could do for you. And you have to explore for the lore on this. We'll touch on Hades himself as the big bad later in this episode, but let's bump into the people that you bump into in the house. You got one that really annoys me, Hypno. Hypno tells you how you die, and he rubs that salt right in that wound.
It's his job.
Thanks, Hypnos.
I
I
love
know
it.
how I died. I was there.
I love it. I love Hypnos telling me how I die. It's super fun. His dialogue is like, wow, there's when you die to Hades, like, this has been expunged from the record. That's never happened.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, weird.
Oh, the bone hydra. Hate to see it.
Yeah. Have you tried not dying? Oh, you should definitely
But
dodge
he
faster
actually
next
tells
time.
you that at some point. Have you tried?
Super
not
fun.
dying.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And Hypnos is the god of dreams, which this has nothing to do with dreams. He just wants to rub that salt near your wound. That's all he does.
Well, it does and it doesn't. Because Hypnos is god of dreams. His brother is Thanatos, god of death. Because the Greeks viewed sleep and death as to be very, very closely related. Obviously not the same, but so close it was essentially to sleep was almost to die. And so Hypnos' job being to list off the ways you died is very funny for the god of sleep. Who all he wants to do is take a damn nap. No one will let him nap.
You also bump into the house guard, which is Achilles.
Achilles!
I love Achilles in this. Achilles has a very valuable, not only can you be friends, total bros with Achilles, but Achilles is the guy who taught Zag how to fight. And Achilles, even in the Greek lore, knows how to fight with every weapon. It's his
Achilles.
thing. He's Achilles.
Yeah.
I was to say, the Achilles we see in the Hades game is not the Achilles that you would have read about in the Iliad or in mythology. This is because Achilles in the Iliad, and he is brash, he is aggressive, he is impulsive, he is incredibly stubborn, he is impatient. Like, he is, his whole thing in the Iliad is essentially learning to be humble, and in the end, dying, and not because of that, because of other things. So you get a version of Achilles that you would not usually find in stories that want to tell an Achilles story, because this is the version we get of the man who has gone through all of that and has actually grown from it and learned from the mistakes he made in life and is mournful of the mistakes he made in life. And so the reason he is like, Zagreus looks up to him so much, and you read it because you also get his journals that you are unlocking, his notes, and so his writings. And when he talks about Zagreus in the writings, he's like, I don't really know why I wanted, like, offered to train him. I just think he kind of reminds me of me. And I think he sees that too, that like impulsiveness that used to be there, because he tends to, it's noted that Zagreus tends to like respond to Achilles better than he responds to Hades. And I think that is that idea of, so we can also learn about Zagreus through, if you know anything about Achilles, knowing from his myth, and that gives you a little bit more sense of like who's Zagreus as a character. Though Zagreus also, I think, very polite young man, very polite boy, always
he's
so
a good
nice.
Like, he never curses out his father. He's always like aggressively polite as he puts him down.
Aggressively polite. He's like, oh, you wouldn't know anything about that, would you, Dad? Like, he's just, oh, it's so good.
Because one of the things with Hades is Hades, as the god of the underworld, is all about the bureaucracy. So being polite, he politely rubbing it. Oh, so you didn't know about this, huh?
Weird. Interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. You also get from him the codex, but you don't get the codex the first time you meet Achilles. You have to work for it.
Yep.
Which kind of makes sense, because Achilles is like, this codex will help you out in studying things. However, if you got through Hades the first time without needing to die, you don't need to know this. You don't need this help.
Yeah, and even I would say it doesn't necessarily like unlock any like secrets. It just gives you more story information, like how you learn a lot about the Titan War, which is mentioned, and kind of mysteries that are you have to like think about and pursue, because he notes those things that haven't been solved yet, because you have to play the game to get there. And it's just really interesting.
Also, a quick note, which I thought was genius, and this was a problem for me and Rob going through the game, because we were playing through it for an episode of Gaming Theater Presents, and he's not there. He didn't show up, and we had to die 4 or 5 times because Achilles wasn't there. people in the house leave.
Yeah, they sometimes just aren't there. You don't get to talk to them every time.
I like that they're all mad at Zagreus for just bailing, and then they do it to you all the time.
Well, they're usually at least doing their
Yeah,
jobs.
sure, they have jobs and important things to do, and Zagreus is just a bum that lives around his dad's house. But
Okay,
still.
well, okay,
Just
now
gonna
hold
run
on.
away.
Zagreus tried. Okay, Zagreus tried to do it, but his father fired him because he wasn't good at it.
No, it is. Yeah, but they are. It is so interesting because they are all so hurt by the fact that Zag would just leave without saying anything. And I also think that also gives you an insight as to how this game undermine has like a bad connotation. I don't mean undermine. I think I mean reverses, not retcons, deconstructs the underworld myths.
Yeah, no, they deconstruct the underworld myths on that.
Because the underworld in Greek mythology is a wretched place. When in the Odyssey, Odysseus goes to the underworld and meets the dead, and one of the people he meets is Achilles, who says that I would rather be a slave in life than a king in death, to just underline how horrible it is to die in the mist. The idea like there is no Elysium, no shining place for heroes to go, nothing to be gained. Death is just misery. It's stagnation forever. And death is separation. Death is loss. Death is parting. And this game tells a story set in the underworld, set in death, about dying again and again. That is a story about reconnection and rejuvenation and life and reforging broken bonds and healing. And it's so incredible that they're able to do this by telling all of the same myths. Like, all the same things. Like, they are not inventing new stories to tell their story. They are just putting them in a slightly different order and letting you decide what happens next as a player.
Yeah.
And I really think that was just brilliant to do in the House of Hades, because especially at the very beginning, it's a dour place. It's a sad place. It's not a place you really want to be and hang out. And Zagreus is kind of a dour, sad person. A little bit angry, a little bit bitter, and it's just he's not in a good mood. As the game progresses, as you start to connect more with the people, as you start to like rebuild the house, as you start to learn more about who you are and what you're doing, as Zagreus starts to overcome kind of his, emotional baggage, the house gets better. The people get a little bit happier, and they get a little bit nicer. And it's just like the mood starts to shift as the game goes. And it's so hard to like quantify, because it's not just like one thing that happens. It's all these really tiny little details that gradually build up to make this place better.
Yeah.
In fact, as they said, there was no music in the house because Orpheus is missing. And Orpheus, very famous story, Orpheus and Eurydice, which was funny to me because Orpheus isn't in the underworld in the lore. He goes, visits, and then he bails.
Yes, he tries to rescue Eurydice and ultimately fails. If you keep telling the story, he usually ends up getting ripped apart by ravenous Dionysus fans who don't like his dour music, basically.
I'm so sad. My muse is trapped down there. Didn't go back and get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you find Orpheus, you get music that you can play in the background on that. And then eventually you get the contractor to help build up the house.
You could have flower petals. Every time there's an option for flowers, I'm like, and plants and flowers. And we literally like have flower petals raining in the main entrance. And it's like, fuck you, Hades. Plants.
Plants.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I like to just imagine that Hades, he wasn't really he didn't really approve this. He didn't really ask for this. But you know what? He's married to Persephone.
Yeah.
He's not going to say no to flowers.
That's also true. He's going to pretend he hates it, but it reminds him of his wife.
But we will talk about Persephone later, because that's the end. But Nyx, his second wife. Nyx is adorable, and I love her as the stepmom. The very supportive stepmom.
It's so... Yeah, it's so good. And So second wife is interesting because I view her as like, yeah, that's Zagreus's like mom, but I don't view her as like Hades' wife. I view her as like she also runs the underworld, but is in charge of like her own shit.
Yeah.
And they just told Zagreus that like, yeah, this is your mom. Don't ask questions. And I love because and then Nyx is like when Zagreus finds out the truth about his mother as someone named Persephone, he's like, I need to go find her. Nyx is like endlessly supportive of that, and she's the one that like helps like hide Zagreus from things, like gets in touch with the Olympians. And there's so much good dialogue where at one point in time, like once Zagreus is actually able to like meet Persephone and is talking to her and he's talking to Nyx, he has this great line that's essentially like, well, yeah, like she's my birth mother, but like you raised me, like I love you. You in my heart, you will always be like my mom. And I'm just like, oh, this family is so beautiful.
Tears getting a little freckly. And Nyx is the goddess of night.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's mostly dark in the underworld for the most part. In fact, time doesn't move in the underworld. Except Hades apparently knows how a clock works down there. Like, Hades knows what time it is, which is why Zag is late to things.
You can't reprimand your son for being late if you don't adhere to the concept of time.
Exactly.
Can if you're Hades.
And a little thing that I just to me is always adorbs. You bump into, and it's in a little cafe that's in the House of Hades, and they have the Employee of the Month. But other people will just show up there as just hang out. When you leave, at this point, this is the first time you'll bump into Skelly. There's no actual lore or mythology of Skelly. It's just a skeleton.
Yeah, no. He's just there.
Which is funny is because he's like the least regal sounding character in the entire game.
Yeah.
Which I think they did that on purpose.
Yeah, he's like, Skelly's funny because all these like NPCs, you can like help them or do things for them. And Skelly leads you on to think you can do something for him. He's a fucking liar. Here's a mild spoiler. We've spoiled a lot of shit. Skelly's a fucking liar.
Yeah.
I'm so mad about it.
I spent so much Titan blood leveling that fucking sword, which I'd never use, just to kill him, and then he just makes fun of me for it. What a jackass.
I do love the aspect of Arthur, so I do use that sword like all the time.
Oh no, I use the aspect of Arthur, but that's not what you have to upgrade.
That's
you have
right.
to upgrade
You're
the
right.
aspect
No, you have
of
to Zagreus. And I'm like, I could have poured this into Arthur. Fuck.
I could have put it into anything else.
See, this is the thing about Skelly is like, gameplay wise, he's there so that you can sort of try out your moves in a safe environment. You know, you just got this shield and you're not quite certain how it works, so you go and you try out your stuff. It doesn't take long for you to get the hang of these weapons, you know. And so when you're having to replay the game 100 times and it only takes you like once or twice to learn each of the weapons, most of the time I don't hit Skelly. I don't even bother because I've already, I fulfilled the gameplay purpose of it. Yeah. So when I get to the point of conversation where Skelly doesn't want to talk and Zagreus threatens to never hit him again, and Skelly's like freaking out, just like, no, you have to. And I'm just thinking, even if he tells me this secret, I'm probably never going to hit him again because there's not a reason for me to. This is an empty threat. It's going to be happening either way, Skelly. I'm sorry.
I enjoy just wailing away on Skelly. It's just fun.
Sometimes it is very fun. I agree.
Yeah, you can upgrade your things. So what's weird is this is also a spot where you can easily bump into a narrator. And as far as I can tell, the narrator is just something that Zagreus knows personally. Who's the narrator? Nothing. He just talks to him.
It's so he can hear the narrator. Because that is how Zagreus finds out that Persephone is his mother. He's like rummaging around Hades' desk for reasons I don't really know. And he finds a letter signed from Persephone. And the narrator says it was from Zagreus' mother. And he's like, wait, what? Nyx isn't my mom? Wait, who's Persephone? And the narrator's like, what?
Whoops.
And it's like, what is this? Why? Is it Homer? Like who? I don't know. I don't know who the narrator is supposed to be or why.
I'm hoping it's Homer. I honestly do. Just put that in there. And apparently Homer can't keep this secret. Wait, what? When you get the weapons, which is funny, the weapons we're going to just briefly touch on them. The weapons in the game are a sword, a spear, a shield, a set of fists, and gauntlets, a bow, and then for some reason the gun.
And it's just a fucking gun. It's Hestia's weapon. I love that. Can I talk about that for a hot second?
Yeah, so each of the weapons have an origin, but yeah, go talk about the gun that's kind of out of place in Greek mythology.
It's like, so yeah, all the weapons are like of an origin. They're just basic. I mean, as a standard, they feel like pretty standard, like melee, not melee, but like weapons, video game weapons.
Yeah.
But there's
Shield of Aegis, it's a thing.
Yeah. There's 6 of them. They don't necessarily need a backstory. Like, I never really asked. I was like, no, it's the weapon in the game. But the game is so good at folding in the lore that they're like, these are the weapons that the original 6 Olympians used to fight the Titans. And I love that shit so much. Are you kidding me? Like, and not only does that mean it's like the shield that Zeus had, the spear that Hades had, sword was what Poseidon had, and then you open them more, and it's like, oh, the gauntlets were what Demeter had, the bow is what Hera had, and the gun is what, or the adamant rail is what Hestia had.
And it's just a gun. It's just a gun.
And it's just a gun, and it's my favorite weapon. And what that means is something that is so often overlooked or dismissed in retellings of the Titan War is that, yes, the goddesses also fought the Titans.
Yes.
Usually they don't, or usually they just ignore that fact. But no, the goddesses themselves also fought in the Titan War, and that's really fucking cool.
And I always thought it was weird. I said, why is Demeter punching out a Titan? Of all people, Snowy Grandma. Oh, she's going to bring up the left and right folks.
Well, they talk about like the gauntlets are for someone who's not afraid to really get their hands dirty and really get into that. And Demeter, goddess of the earth, of the harvest, of like gardening and agriculture, like she is not afraid of that. And Hestia is like goddess of the hearth. So she gets the gun. She gets the laser gun. Sure, why not? I'm not mad.
I'm not mad about it. I'm just saying.
The laser gun. That's Lucifer.
Right, I'm sorry. I just have the aspect of...
I want to touch
on this? It feels like a lot to touch on the aspects.
I'm not going to touch on the aspects. What I'm going to touch on is the simple fact that these weapons are fourth dimensional creatures.
Yeah,
because they transcend time and space.
Yeah, because you can unlock the aspects of it.
Yeah, these events are happening like before Jesus is born, essentially, and before anything like Judaism, like whenever this happens, right? It's definitely before the major religions are founded. I guess I don't know when Judaism was founded, but it's like the sword gets the aspect of King Arthur, who certainly isn't alive yet. The spear gets the aspect of Guan Yu, which I don't think, maybe China's got Guan Yu now, but I'm not entirely certain. The shield, you get fucking what is it? Beowulf. I don't like it.
I haven't unlocked it yet. Oh shit, is it
I didn't know, I'm sorry.
That's fine. No, you're cool. I'm into that. I love that it's Beowulf.
The gauntlets are Gilgamesh.
Into it.
The bow is Ram.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And then the gun is Lucifer.
It's fucking Lucifer.
And it's the strongest weapon out of literally everything I've used. I love the gauntlets still. I'll use those. Those are my favorite.
Uh-huh.
But the aspect of Lucifer is a fucking laser that just blows up a fucking bomb.
It's the best. It's my favorite.
Lucifer's gonna be fighting God with a laser, dude. Like, what the fuck is that about?
Already fought God with the laser.
We'll have already fought God.
Yeah. Absolutely insane. These guns are nuts. These weapons are just nuts. Okay.
And I think the weapons and also the aspects of these, like introducing other mythologies, is so cool and interesting and fun and silly. It's so silly. Like the laser bomb gun of Lucifer, the shield of Beowulf. Like they don't need to. But it's silly.
Arthurian lore.
Arthurian, you stab the ground and carry the holy sigil around you. It's so silly, and it's silly in a way that's not dismissive or juvenile. It's just silly because, honest to God, these stories are silly.
Yeah.
It's silly that we have them still. It's silly that we've kept them for so long, but silly isn't bad. Silly is they're fun. We have them because they're fun.
And these are notable things on it, like Arthur's sword. I got that.
It's Excalibur!
Excalibur. Guan Yu's spear. That's a thing Guan Yu uses. Lucifer's gun, I'm working on the details on that one.
Which,
why not?
I'm going to argue that Guan Yu's spear, that's not a spear per se. It's something else. I don't remember the name. I always forget it. It's something else. It's not a spear.
It's spear adjacent.
It's spear adjacent, but there were better spears you could use throughout mythologies.
Exactly. But anyway, and that's just for funsies.
That's just for funsies. That's nothing. It's just for funsies. It's great. I don't think at all. I mean, we could dive into it and talk a little bit about how you see through mythologies around the world there are reoccurring elements that we see often, and sometimes that could maybe be attributed to ancient shared histories that were traveled, like Proto-Indo-European stories that spread out. We saw them reappearing in different ways, or just the fact that the human experience isn't always so different. And we will, even no matter where you're at, you're going to find similar stories. And
this is the most effective way to create these materials, to create this kind of thing that's super effective in this way. And every culture has a fucking spear.
Yes. And so you have like the existing of like, you have the baseline. These were the ones that the Olympians had. Each one has an aspect that's related to some other figure from Greek mythology. And then there's a third aspect that introduces them to like other mythologies around the world, serves to tie in the fact that none of these stories exist on an island.
Yeah.
Like, there is a way to connect and spread, and that it is more valuable to do so. It's not looking at something under a microscope and only looking at that. There can be a time and place for that, but ultimately stories are richer and more valuable when you let them be told together.
Very true.
Now, after you go through this, then you're back into dealing with Hades and stuff. One of the things that you start popping into as a random chance, and I love this, is Daedalus's hammer.
Oh, yes!
Which totally changes your gameplay, because you're talking about the mad scientist of Greek mythology, Daedalus.
Yeah.
Which, I have a running theory with this. This is why Daedalus isn't in the game. My thought process is, he built the sucker. He built the dungeons. He's like, I got you.
Labyrinth.
Yeah, I just picture Daedalus as this guy going, you know what? I gotta deal with you, Hades. You need to keep all these dead bodies around here? I got a plan. It'll cost you. I got that. And Hades probably will never once look for Daedalus, because he built the way in, he built the way out. Because remember, Daedalus built the labyrinth.
Labyrinth, yeah.
And I guess that's kids' game for this. I've upped my game for this one.
Yeah, and we know that was the exact time this is taking place isn't clear, but it doesn't necessarily matter, because who the hell cares? But Theseus and the Minotaur
got a gun from Lucifer. We're good.
You got a gun from Lucifer. Don't worry about the setting. But Theseus and the Minotaur are dead. You fight them in Elysium, so you know this is post. This is post the Labyrinth story. So Daedalus is already past you. I think that also maybe harkens back to the original idea for the game, which was originally Minos, and you were going to play as Theseus getting out of the labyrinth.
Right.
So the idea of running into Daedalus to upgrade your weapons was probably an element that existed from that. And at that point, it's like, well, instead of just being Daedalus, here's a hammer. Don't worry about it.
Where's Daedalus? Probably left. If anyone can leave this place, it's him.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been like if they chose not to go with Daedalus, it really could have just been Hephaestus' hammer.
It is surprising that it's not Hephaestus. When should we talk about the characters that didn't show up in this one?
We'll do that once we get through most of these characters, but it is a thing. So with that, but yeah, Daedalus' hammer, and Rob gave you this one advice. I go, hey, should I pick up this boon or the hammer? Go hammer.
Always
go hammer every time.
Every time, yeah.
But that hammer will magically change your gameplay style all over the place. And I remember having the spear. I'm like, I hate the spear. All of a sudden got Daedalus' hammer. Oh, I can throw this across the entire screen? Oh, you are in. And it does bonus damage? You're in, buddy.
And the fact that it can do different upgrades depending on what aspect you have. Like when you have the aspect of Lucifer on, your upgrades are different than when it's just this typical adamant rail. Like, oh my god!
I think it's specifically with the special aspects.
Yeah, because the
other
ones
special aspects are like real game changer of the aspect of the gun or like weapon themselves.
Yeah, if it's just Eris, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. It'll be the same ones that you get for just the adamant rail, right? Or Zagreus.
And I love that back before we left the House of It is one of the things that you can get, which is basically a bunch of minor achievements, is a minor list of the fates.
Yeah, the prophecies.
The prophecies. And the prophecies say, you're going to get this. I don't know when. At some point you need to do this. And that's perfect for anybody who's achievement hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here's the thing. A lot of those I never would have gotten without the fact that, hey, you should, or like, you're going to get these and you'll get a reward when you do, right? I would never have actually picked up a lot of boons, Deadless Hammer things. Just, I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of like the idea that the fates, like, they predicted something and now they need to nudge you in the direction of that prediction.
It's kind of
Like,
what it was.
we don't want to be proven wrong, so I kind of need you to. I said you were going to go do this, so I kind of need you to go do it.
It's like, don't you want 6 ambrosia? Don't you want a diamond? I do want a fucking diamond. I really do need that diamond. Damn it. Okay. I'll turn on Poseidon's thing and run through this a bunch.
Man, I hate this. But the fates were right.
Yeah.
And they're not ever wrong.
That is something that he and Nyx talk about, because the fates, we don't see the fates. They're another character that doesn't appear but is mentioned, and they are Nyx's daughters. And so Zagreus kind of asks her about, like, well, do we actually have free will, essentially? Is everything preordained? And her explanation is like, I think the fates perhaps see the things that you will choose to do. You don't do them because they said they were going to do them. They said you will do them because that was your decision.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you don't have to go get all the things for the Daedalus Hammer. They didn't make you do it, but you did make the decision to go do that thing to get like 3 diamonds. So
the fates might not be able to control everything, but they can bribe you.
yes.
And I'm a sucker for some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's, since we've gone through the major things from the first time, most of this will happen roughly the first time you're going through the game too.
Mm-hmm.
Your repeated action is what lets you check out the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
But now we kind of have to get into the bosses, and the bosses for that is kind of interesting. The first boss that you'll bump into is Majora, but on occasion you'll bump into one of Megaera's sisters because it's the Furies.
The Furies.
Let's see here. There's Majora, which is the Fury of I forget what her aspect is. Which the first time playing, Megaera's a nightmare to deal with, and then you realize Megaera's the easy one.
Megaera's the best one. I don't know. I kind of like Trisiphonie.
That's my favorite.
Tisiphone is the easier one, but the first time I met her, she scared the crap out of me.
She is so scary. She's so scary. She is the one that punishes murderers, and she just says murderer like over and over. But in time, eventually, you can get her to say Zagreus. Eventually, she will just call you Zagreus. Now, she's still going to try to kill you. That is her job. But she will be like, Zagreus, and she's like happy when she's able to do it. And again, how did this game get me to find the fact that this Fury says your name so delightful? I'm like, yay, Trisiphonie! I'm so proud
Because
of
you fought her 100 times and she never said your name.
I just think that because it's such a different way from how Zagreus deals. Like, Zagreus is a talker. He likes to talk to people. And so when you first meet Tisiphone and you can't talk to her, that is the thing that was the most jarring for me. Like, you know, Meg, she wasn't going to let you pass, but you could argue with her about it. You know?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't necessarily win that argument, but you could try. Tisiphone, no, talking is not even an option here. And like the second or third or fourth or fifth time that you're fighting Tisiphone, and you've kind of realized at this point she's actually not that dangerous compared to the other ones. You know, she's actually one of the easier ones. Zagreus kind of starts taking her less seriously.
Yeah.
And like, you know, starts sort of joking around with her a little bit. And I think that causes her to open up.
Yeah, where I never thought about that, but the fact that Zagreus does like approach her as like lighthearted and humorous, that's probably another element why she actually like tries to say, because it doesn't happen right away, it takes forever. And even when he's like, hey, do you want to try to say Zagreus? She like gets a Z out and then calls you a murderer again. So it takes a couple battles of her showing up and you getting through that for her to eventually say Zagreus.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you have Megaera, which when she's doing this, it's her job. She's like, at first she's like, I'm mad at you for leaving. After about like a couple of battles, she's like, let's just get this over with. At some point, Zag actually like, look, let's just get this over with. All right, check the boxes. Good, later.
Yeah.
But she's mad if you beat her because, you know, she's not doing her job right.
Yeah.
She's career-oriented.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Electo's just bloodthirsty.
Oh yeah,
True.
Electo crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Electo
I-
has a rage meter. That's how angry she is.
Yeah. So what were we saying,
funny.
DJ?
I enjoy anytime you go into that chamber. Zagreus is always trying to guess which one it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fun.
Super fun.
And I think there's a random chance you fight all three.
It's not random. That's a heat that you can turn on.
Yeah, you can turn on the heat to give the bosses make it more
Oh,
difficult.
okay.
And so the first one you notch up, it puts all three Furies there. The second one you notch up, it makes their lava be in the Hydra's area.
Mhm.
So you have to
You gotta avoid the lava a little more.
all not just around it, like it's in between where the big head appears and the little heads, and that one kills me. Like I cannot get through that one, so I have no idea what the third heat does for the Elysium heroes. I've never turned that on and I've never gotten to it. So
But yeah, they're personal. And then you go into Asphodel, the second area, and the boss of that area is the Hydra, the Bone Hydra. It's a Bone Hydra because it's dead.
It's dead. Can we talk about Asphodel real quick? How it's so different. So Asphodel is the fields, right? It's just an empty fucking field. Nothing.
Asphodel's on fire.
But Asphodel's on fire because the river Phlegethon, the river of fire, has flooded. And I think, Rob, you could probably speak to this just from like the game level mechanic, because I think if we didn't have these like standard lava obstacles to make Asphodel a little different, Tartarus, Asphodel, and Elysium would kind of feel all the samey, just with different like architecture, just different like decor around. But all of a sudden, video game lava.
They wanted to make each area feel different and not just look different. They wanted them to play different. Asphodel had to strategize differently in Asphodel than you would in Elysium. You couldn't be using the same tactics. There would be advantages and disadvantages to both. But Asphodel, as it was in the lore, didn't really allow for that. And so they, so this wasn't necessarily in keeping with Greek mythology, but whatever. It makes for a more interesting game, so I can let it pass.
Yeah, and they do use the element of mythology to explain it, being like the river Phlegethon has flooded and now there's fire everywhere. It's like, okay,
enjoy your lava.
And Zagreus mentions that he's like, "Isn't this just supposed to be fields? What happened? Why are they flooded? I have no, and it's not, and then there's no one trying to fix it. Like it's just this is the way it is now. Good luck."
Oh man.
True.
I guess before we move on for that one, let's backtrack a little bit. Inside all of these areas, there's always an NPC that's just running around. It's a random chance you'll bump into him. In Tartarus, the first area, you bump into
Sisyphus and Boldy.
Love Sisyphus.
And his friend Boldy. It didn't used to be his friend Boldy, but he carved. I think it has a smiley face.
It has a little smiley face. Yep, he has pushed Boldy up this hill so many times they are bonded.
And you can talk to Boldy and increase your friendship with Boldy.
Sometimes Boldy will give you a boon if you give them nectar, and sometimes they don't.
I did it once, and it gave me the bad boon.
Oh no!
I'm never doing it again.
There's a bad boon?
It's a boon that does nothing.
Okay.
I got one that increased my defense, so I
got Jack from Boldy. I'm like, you get no more nectar from me, fucker.
You're cut off. But Sisyphus is, in Greek mythology, famously for pushing a boulder up a hill every day. But when you bump into Sisyphus is standing there, hanging out. And if you talk to him enough times, you figure out that Sisyphus's punishment is to push the boulder. However, everyone's more on edge with Zag trying to leave the place, so he's taking a break.
Yeah, as long as the Furies aren't there to, like, whip him and make him keep pushing the boulder, he can kind of just hang out.
Mm-hmm. And I love it because the Furies will show up and just be like, why are you helping Zagreus? Stop helping him.
He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know.
What? Who?
Fury
I've
leaves.
never heard of him.
Zagreus comes up, hey, so you want a thing?
Hey, you want a burrito?
Oh. Also, I love the fact that one of the healing items you get in the game is a hero. A hero, some fries, and a drink.
That makes more sense. I definitely thought it was a burrito, but I thought it was a burrito, but you're right. It's a hero. My bad.
It's a hero. A total Greek hero. Like, nice. And fast food hero. You can just get whatever.
You gotta be quick. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can talk to Sisyphus, and Sisyphus is hanging around because, frankly, he's got, oh, he's the guy who's like, I don't have to do this? I don't have to push this boulder? Let's, and this is the first time he's chilled because Sisyphus is famous for screwing Hades over.
Yes, he cheated death not once, but twice.
Twice. And if there's one thing Hades doesn't like, is people who cheat death. Unless there's accidents, because that's his thing.
That's the other thing. He also no. Yeah. Can I talk about who we meet in Asphodel?
Yes, go for it.
So in Asphodel, sometimes you end up in a room. So any of the NPC rooms, obviously they have no enemies, just the NPC, and you end up in a room and you hear singing because it's Eurydice. She's the nymph. She is Orpheus's muse, the one who died on their wedding day, and Orpheus tried to come save her and failed. And she will give you, she cooks, and she'll give you the things she makes, and that'll like help you increase the rarity or the power of your boons. And it's great. But her whole thing is that she is pretty miffed about Orpheus. Like, she's like pissed that he failed, that he got her hopes up. She's not super mad about being dead, and she's not mad about being in Asphodel, but she is pissed off at Orpheus, and she doesn't, like, for the longest time, she's not interested in talking to him and doesn't want to see him again. But like with all the NPCs, you can like talk to her and like talk to Orpheus and like relay messages between the two, and eventually get them to be like, okay, I miss them too. All right, we got to buy out Orpheus's contract so we can go visit Eurydice.
Oh yeah. And also, and this is a gameplay mechanic, taking a break. Like these spots where you can talk to the NPCs, or later when you build a fountain that just showed up there. It is
just like shake out my hands, pop my knuckles in my thumbs, like my god.
Because sometimes it'll be intense.
I just got out of a witch room. God, my hands hurt.
But yeah, you bump into the Bone Hydra, which is a Bone Hydra as the boss of Asphodel, and the Hydra story is probably the most famous of all the monsters that exist in Greek mythology. I mean, fair to say. Like, I'm pretty certain that's why they picked the Hydra. It's just like, we need a Hydra.
You gotta have a Hydra.
Gotta have a Hydra. The Hydras can be a mean fight because it takes on different aspects of all of its heads. And I do enjoy the fact that you might have to deal with 3 heads. You might have to deal with all 9. Who knows?
It's fun. I do enjoy that battle. It is. I always have fun with it. Even when I die, I'm like, damn it, Lerny. But I like that one. It's fun. Now, the Elysium battle, on the other hand.
Elysium is nuts. So in
Elysium's a rough fight.
Yeah.
That's for dang sure.
I love it.
Of course you love it.
Elysium is, in the mythology, Elysium's reserved for, like, the best of the best.
The greatest heroes.
The greatest heroes. So Elysium has this more look where it's more eternal. It's bright greens. However, Elysium also has traps that are just going off whenever it feels like it.
All the time. Yeah.
Whenever it feels like it, there is a timer. Every time those bombs get hit by the arrows, that's not random.
Is that how that works?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the arrows that are flying across, if they reach the end, sometimes they collide with those eggs and the eggs explode. And then the eggs regenerate and then they get shot again. Right?
Yeah. Elysium is also the only place that has a regenerating enemy.
True.
Which sucks to deal with.
Yeah, it sucks to deal with if you don't got Doom.
Shut up. I
you know
love
what? That's a fair argument for Doom.
There it is. We did it. It came back around. It's callback. I love how it's like the Elysium is so lush. Like there is like plant life here. Because in a lot, there's not a lot of mythology about it, but commonly, Elysium was created by Persephone. It didn't exist before Persephone came to the underworld, and she is the one that created it. And so it being full of like, it's still dead, but like plant life, things that are associated with like the goddess of spring, is visually excellent.
Yeah, very true.
Now, in this place, the NPC you get to bump into is Patroclus?
Patroclus.
Patroclus.
Oh
Achilles'
my God.
boyfriend.
Patroclus.
Patroclus. Oh my God, we got to reunite. Oh, these poor gay husbands. We got to get them back together. They're just, they're both so sad, and they both are convinced that the other one is better off without them, and they've been abandoned. It's like, no.
Yeah.
What's weird about it, and this is interesting, he doesn't tell you who he is.
For the longest time.
It takes a minute.
You gotta work. You gotta bring in that confidence. Zagreus is right now going to therapy mode. He's got to be your shoulder.
Also, I think Vazir's, he's got to wear him down. I'm going to wear you down. I'm going to keep coming in and giving you a nectar. I'm going to keep being nice, and eventually you're going to be my friend too.
Because Zagreus is a listener.
Yep, Zagreus is a listener, and he listens.
And that way he can fix this marriage's troubles.
And he does. I mean, I haven't yet, but I just can't trigger the last comment.
I'm working on it. It's a project. Now, this is also one of the roughest fights in there because you get to deal with the final boss of this stage is the Minotaur and Theseus.
Oh, yeah. I love it. And they are best friends. They are bros for afterlife. They are bonded. They are soulmates. Not the way Achilles and Patroclus are soulmates. This is a different kind of soul. This is platonic soulmate. But they're like, it's so weird because it's Theseus and the Minotaur. Theseus is the one that killed the Minotaur. He talks about how when he died, he found the Minotaur in the underworld, and we're just like, nah, man, we're brothers now. And Astrius the Minotaur is like so. Theseus is a dick.
Oh,
very much so.
Not to the Minotaur. He loves Astrius, like not to him. To you, Zagreus. He is the biggest asshole I've ever met.
Well, it's because you're a fiend.
You're a fiend.
You're a demon. He needs to defeat you.
Oh man, when I see Theseus, when I die to Theseus, I'm always so mad. I'm never. That's when I get the most mad.
I always go after Theseus first, partly because I feel like it's good strategy, but mostly just to shut him up.
I just want to shut him the fuck up. Yep.
I'm the opposite. I go after Asterius first, since he's the one I can burst down, and then I can focus on Theseus and getting behind him proper.
Oh, yeah, that is a good point. Because I love what Theseus does. It's another like the gods being fickle. Theseus can also have boons from the gods. Just one god,
but still, it is a game changer.
It is.
I always love it too because if you have a boon from a god that Theseus also has a boon from, and you use it against him, he'll be shocked.
He
like, what? I thought you were on my side.
Yeah. Why are you helping the demon? Why are you helping the fiend?
It's like, no, there's no sides. They don't take sides. They're assholes. Don't worry, Theseus. You don't know this. You should know this.
Yeah, you gotta fight these guys at the same time. They're bros, and there's also a random chance that you'll bump into the mini boss of this, which is just the Minotaur.
Yeah, sometimes you just run in and and I'm always like, fuck. Like, I don't die to him when he's the mini-boss, but he does wear my health down quite a bit, and that's really inconvenient.
I prefer him over the fucking other one.
Yeah, I don't like the butterfly balls.
To be honest, though, my favorite part about the Colosseum fight, it's not getting to shut Theseus up or anything like that. It's the one fan of Zagreus. Everybody else is cheering on, Theseus and the Minotaur. They love them. They're the champions. But then you've got just one guy, who's going to put up a little Zagreus flag. And after the fight's won, you can walk up to him and be like, hey, thanks for rooting for me.
This is for you. I saw the cutest fan comic that was from the point of view of the Shade, like watching Zagreus come in, and the Shade's like thinking like, he's different. He doesn't seem like a monster. It's like he's fighting for something. It's like he's fighting for something he really cares about. And then the Shade just pops and is suddenly like the orange color, and then Zagreus looks over and sees the Shade and smiles, and I wish I could find it again. I can't, but I love that kind of shit. I eat it up.
I also love that the Shades are, basically souls from people who have gone down, who are in the underworld. But they hang out. They are watching you. They're watching you. They're not going to get involved. They're just watching what's happening. You can bump into the Shades in the house and find out how they died. There's a couple of Shades that are working in administration, keeping track. That's how you get your stats. They've been keeping track on you. And the Shades are watching. Yeah. But this one guy
one of my favorite Shades is the Shade that's like, dude, I almost saw Aphrodite in the river, and then he's died of dehydration. That motherfucker was thirsty. So funny. So funny.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
One of my favorite, when I saw them, like, that's got to be one of the greatest jokes in this game. Outright. Like to say like dehydration with that line. Come on.
That is
That's
genius.
so funny. Oh, that's good.
Now, after this area, you go into the next area, which is the front
Temple of
door.
Sticks.
Temple of Sticks, yeah.
Sticks, yeah. The Temple of Sticks, the spot to the dead. And I don't know if, I can't remember if there's an NPC running around in this place or not.
There's not, but there is Cerberus.
Mm-hmm. Now,
And Karen.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about Karen yet.
oh yeah, let's talk about Charon, who, 4 out of 5 stars. He wants a Yelp review. He is working that shop.
If you're gonna give him, you gotta give him 5 out of 5. You don't understand.
No,
Full
he kicks
score
my
or
ass. Fuck
nothing?
him.
Sorry, Rob.
Charon's
go
always
on.
confused me, like both in game and mythology. Like, what is he using the money for?
That's a
You
good
know?
question.
Like
You just gotta
even
pay
in
the toll
mythology, you have to pay the toll to Charon, so he'll guide you across the river Styx. And like, what is he spending that on? He is the shopkeep. He's the one with the goods to buy. What value does he get from the money? I don't understand it.
It's a rigged economy.
You just got to pay the troll toll. It's just how it is.
I mean, he's got to buy those things he's selling you.
I'm sure that shit just washes up in the River of Styx, and
You know what? That's
I
fair.
think
That's
they
fair.
actually do state that explicitly at some
Oh,
point.
yeah?
That this is just crap that he finds in the river.
Which is weird because that means that he's going to sell me a hero on a surprise that's been in the river for a while.
Look, we may not know exactly what he does with the money, but we know he gets mad when you take it from him.
Yes, he does.
He gets mad.
He's super
And
mad.
I've managed to beat him twice, not in a row. Sad.
One thing I actually love about him, though, is that I don't know if it's every time or basically every time, but there's usually a boon from a god that you can buy.
Mhm.
And remember, the gods are sending these down there for you just to try and get them to you, and they can't really see you per se, So they're kind of they're working as hard as they can, which means that at one point they're like, "Hey, Charon, can you get this boon down to Zagreus?" And he's like, "I got you, fam." And then he gets to Zagreus and like, "Okay, this is yours for $50."
For $150. I think boons are 150.
It was around 150. He's like,
Unless you turn
you
the
want this
heat
boon?
on to make it more expensive, which is also a pain.
But the thing is, they know that he's selling it.
And I so rarely get it because it's so expensive, which means the gods gave him a boon that he then consciously chose not to give you.
No. The gods know that he's selling it. Sometimes they'll talk about the fact that it was sold.
He's got good taste in merchandise. Yeah, I've had
Some shit
Aphrodite be
that,
like,
yeah.
"Oh,
And so it's like they handed him, sell this, bro. Here's your economy.
Let's just face it. Okay, I assume that he sells it. I think they only because the gods don't care about that money life for a while because they're gods.
Yeah.
So it's only probably for $20 just to make the $1 just to make it a legal transaction down there.
Yeah.
Which who's putting this up? Chiron.
yeah."
Yeah.
No one else cares. But in that
He's the
case,
distributor.
he's going to mark it up
Or
because that's what he's going to do.
store. Gods are the distributor.
He knows what these things are worth,
Mhm.
and he charges accordingly.
He knows his worth, and you gotta respect. Gotta respect.
Gotta
it.
respect that. Knows the worth of this thing because that boon has saved my life before.
And I do kind of like. There's a comic that I'd read about it. Because spoiler alert, Charon is the one that sent Skelly to you to be your training dummy.
I know Hermes was in on the deal.
And Skelly doesn't know why. He doesn't
Yeah.
really understand the reasoning behind it. But whatever. It's a job. Why does Charon do it? Because Zagreus goes out, wrecks up the place, and brings in money.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
And by giving Skelly to Zagreus as a training dummy, he's encouraging Zagreus to keep doing that.
Keep wrecking shop. That's also true. I also think it might have something to do. I mean, that's great. I get comic funny. But also, once you finally convince Persephone to come back to the underworld, Chiron picks you up.
Yeah.
Because Zach's like, I actually don't know how to get down there. And she's like, well, we can go my way. Like, you don't have to die. We'll just go through the front door. And Chiron shows up. So I also think it's like him wanting to help Zag get to his mom and get Persephone back. Because clearly they're still close. Persephone's been gone for a real long time. But as soon as she calls, Chiron's there. He's like, hey, if you ever need a ride, anytime.
Do you think Chiron would charge Persephone?
Not at all.
No.
She's the queen.
Never.
Zagreus paid for that trip 1,000,000 times over. What are you talking about?
It's good business to let Zag just get back down here.
They got off, and Persephone steps off, and he bows deeply, and Zag starts to step off, and Chiron holds out his hand, like, you gotta pay. You gotta pay the fee. He's like, what? 2 obols, so everyone's about to pay the fee.
Karen's
You
coming
wanna
to
go in the
Smite.
other way?
Very excited about it.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I hope he still gets to pay that toll. Comes to Smite, you gotta find a way to pay him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt if his passive has something to do with gold. Fast use does, and that was really cool.
Now, when you're in the Temple of Styx, the boss of this area is Cerberus.
Yeah.
Technically.
It's the funniest thing, and I'm so happy that they did it, how you have to beat Cerberus. You go off, you find him some treats, you give him the treats, and Cerberus is cool with you. And they give you the death animation, but Cerberus doesn't die.
It never says. It's like Cerberus vanquished. Not really.
Not
Or
really.
it's like good boy fed.
Yes.
Shit like that.
And if you're like any of us who have petted the crap out of Cerberus, the first time getting there, realizing you might have to fight Cerberus, heartbreaking.
So distressing. Yep. And even Zag plays it up like, oh man, here we go. I guess we know. Nah, just kidding. Okay, you want to go? You want a putrid sack? I'll go get you a putrid sack.
And my favorite thing about it is you're having to go through all those fights, but in the Temple of Styx, there's a chance you can just get through this whole thing in 2 rooms.
If you pick the right room, you're in and out so quick. It gives you a great fountain, and you're done.
And I used to do that, but then I realized every single one of those small rooms counts as an encounter towards the trinkets.
Oh.
So you can power level your trinkets because it's like you got 6 stores to choose from, and every 6 store has like 7 encounters. Let's get it.
Let's do this. And then after this, you're at the top. You're in Greece.
You're outside.
You're outside. And that's when the Big Daddy Hades shows up.
It's very cold.
It's
And it's
very
cold. It's winter.
And
there is a mythology for why it's cold as well. When Persephone goes down to be married to Hades, Demeter doesn't know that Persephone is gone, and gets so upset that she puts the world into winter.
Yep, she threatens to let all the humans die if Zeus does not demand Hades return her daughter. It's very cool. Like the myth of like women are so powerless in ancient Greece, and the story of Demeter using what power she could to get her daughter back in some small way is so good. Now, do I also like the readings where Persephone goes with Hades willingly and becomes a power couple and this is her way of freedom? Of course I love those readings too. We can have multiple versions of stories, gang. They serve multiple purposes.
Absolutely.
I love the first time, because again, if you know Greek mythology and you're like, okay, we're trying to find Persephone, that's Zagreus' mom. Okay, she's left the underworld, so she's back with her mom. She's back on the above. And you go out there and you see that it's winter. Like that scratches like your like mythology brain. It's like, it's not supposed to be winter. If Persephone's out here, it's supposed to be summer. Why is it still winter? Something is wrong. And that's so another thing of show, don't tell. They don't spell that out. At no point in time do they ever spell out that we know Demeter's making it winter, but they don't ever spell out that she's making it winter exactly because Persephone's not there and it's still winter, which means Persephone isn't back with Demeter. But it's so, the game is so good at building this lore around it, and when you know it, nothing feels like a mistake because you find out Persephone's hiding from everybody. So it's not like it was an oversight on their part for it to be winter when Persephone's not in the underworld. Like, it was so intentionally done.
Yeah. And the thing is that Hades wants you to stay in Tartarus. He wants you back home. And so he's the final boss that you deal with, the big bad. And there's very few games that pull this off without feeling like overzealous. But fighting Hades feels like you're fighting a god.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It is a rough
Very
fight.
strong.
And if you played any kind of like JRPGs, yeah, they say they're a god. You can kind of whittle it down if you understand what the mechanics are. No, Hades is a brutal fight going in each time.
Yep.
Yeah, in a lot of RPGs and stuff, you know, you level up your character, you get the infinity +1 sword, you get all the bonus content, and you level grind, and then you get to the boss and they're a joke because they have to be, you know, you have to be able to take them down even if you didn't do all the grinding and the extra side quests and stuff like that. But Hades is a game about difficulty, so they don't pull punches.
No.
And even when you do like max out all your stuff and you've really worked hard and you've gotten all your stats up and everything, you've got your boons maxed out, it's still a hard fight. It doesn't get that much easier.
Yeah, it's something that it's one of the reasons why I really do like the roguelike genre. Because even with there's some that like their final bosses are a little bit of a punk, but Risk of Rain 2's final boss, that's a final boss that is like feels like this guy will fuck me up if I'm not careful.
Oh, and that
because
trick at the end sucks.
His third phase, he takes all of the items that you have taken. So you being this unkillable god for the first two phases, the final phase, he takes it and then he becomes an unkillable god, and you have to avoid him as much as possible and whittle down his health to get your shit back. It's annoying.
Yeah. I got no shame. I got the Mercenaries ending point because I got my ass carried on that fight. But yeah,
That's fair.
Hades has 3 fights that you have to do? 3 versions of that fight?
Is it 3? I thought it was just 2.
I think it's 2.
2.
Yeah.
It's 2. And then he comes back with all his health.
Yeah. He has 2 phases.
The first time that happened, I was so mad.
I was like, phase 2, let's go. And then I got bodied.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good. If I can get to phase 2 with at least one more death to fight, I can usually get it through that, because that one I can follow the rhythm. The first one, when you have a bunch of him summoning a bunch of enemies and stuff and more things exploding, like that one tends to be the one that's going to get me.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I thought was interesting from a game mechanic standpoint, because Rob pointed this out to me when I first got to see it. When you go to Hades the first time, in fact, actually getting up here is how you unlock getting Demeter as a god, because you have to get out of service. But when you fight Hades the first time, if you lose, whether you lose or win, when you go back down to the House of Hades, he's not there.
He's not
sometimes. Because he's waiting for you at the end to give you that punk-ass beating that he wants to give you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's like, from a game, because we were talking too about earlier, when you die, you get more story as your reward. This is an interesting thing, because if you get pretty good at the game and you're constantly getting to Hades, whether or not you beat him, which, I did it at a certain point, getting good enough where I was rarely going through a run where I didn't get to Hades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You don't get to talk to him down in the House of Hades, because he's not there, which means you can't like give him gifts. You can't hear his lines. You can't hear his story.
Can only ever give him one gift until you actually beat the game.
Yeah. But, after that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you are actually in a small way punished for getting to Hades, because now you don't get to experience his story.
Mm-hmm.
You actually have to be worse at the game to get that story out of Hades.
If you get to him, but you don't beat him. Because if you beat him and you get to Persephone and come back, I think he is there usually, because Zagreus wants to talk to him about Persephone. Yeah.
He's already respawned from into the river.
It punishes you for not being good enough at the game.
By the way, that probably hurts him. He's got to take time out of his day, barely takes a day off, and now he has to wait for you to show up.
Get up here.
And then later he's like, well, now this is Zag's job.
Yes. And
now I'm helping my son in his job. So
There's also a question of, is Hades the bad guy in this game?
No.
If you go through the storyline.
I don't think there is a bad guy.
There isn't one.
Yeah, this game doesn't have a villain. This game just has a series of obstacles. But each obstacle makes sense. Like, Hades' thing is he is protecting Persephone. He is worried that because Zagreus has gotten all the Olympians' attention, that the Olympians will find out about what happened to Persephone, and they will wage war on the underworld, but more importantly, they will hurt Persephone. And that is what Hades is trying to prevent. And his whole thing is like, Zagreus, you've been fine without her your whole life. You don't need to, you will be fine now. Leave her alone. But he won't explain that. He won't talk to Zag about that. And even if once he does, Zagreus is like, I can fix this.
I got it. I fixed 2 out of 3 of these couples. I can do this. The Boulder one's still working on that. But yeah, it's one of the concepts that I honestly thought was amazing. Hades isn't exactly a bad person.
Nope.
Hades has a reason why he's doing it. He's not talkative about it.
No.
And he's very fierce dad.
He's not the best dad we've ever seen. But, in terms of mythology, not the worst one either, I'm going to say.
Like, among the Olympian gods, easily top 3.
Nope. I think Tantalus might be the worst.
Ooh, DJ, that's a good one. Tantalus or Kronos? Who's the worst dad?
Tantalus, because he chopped up his kids to prove a point. Kronos ate his kids because he was scared of them.
That's a good point. I
Yeah,
agree with you. Tantalus is a fucking maniac.
Fucking animal, dude.
Mhm.
Not in a good way, derogatorily.
Kronos eating his kids because he's afraid? Okay, I guess you're scared. But also, they did kick his ass.
Yeah.
He was scared because a prophecy came out and he's like, hey, your kids are going to kick the shit out of you. And he's like, well, I'm not going to let that happen. And well, lo and behold, it happened.
Yeah.
Maybe if he was just a good dad, it wouldn't have happened.
Wow, it's almost as if like good dads, yeah. Be a better parent or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and the last person that you bump into is the whole point of this, Persephone.
Persephone. She's so mom.
She is so mom. And I love that on purpose, if you look at the art for it, Persephone's hair is exactly the same as Zag's. And Persephone has green eyes, Hades has red eyes, and Zag has both.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's very good. I'm very excited for Hades too.
I was thinking as soon as like Hades 2, that first trailer dropped, and you see Melanoe's eyes, you're like, oh shit! Let's go!
Let's go. I'm in. I don't really want to spoil everything with Persephone because that's sort of the point of the game. And
yeah,
it's kind of an experience that even our listeners need to go through.
Yeah, it's very good.
It's very
good.
It's
a grind, but it's worth it. It's a lot of fun.
It's a long grind.
As Rob put this game is designed to reward you for story. And that is one of the beauties of Hades is your story is what's your driving point.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the best story is going to be locked behind the hardest fight.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's so great because as a player, this makes you feel like it's worth it. There's many games that are out there that fail at this point where the final fight doesn't either feel that it should be a final fight. If you've ever played Arkham Asylum, it's one of my big fatigues with that. The fight with Joker at the end, cakewalk. It is. And he's supposed to be this big bad.
That's how I feel about Majora from Majora's Mask. When you get the Fierce Deity, but here's the thing about that. It's very hard to get the Fierce Deity. But it turns him into such a punk.
So it feels like you earned your story. Now with this, Supergiant Games got to pick and choose their gods, heroes, and things from mythology that has been showing up in this game.
And that being said, what are some of the things that you were surprised that didn't show up on this and maybe hope that shows up in Hades 2? For me, Hephaestus. I assumed Hephaestus, of all people, would be in this thing. The god of the forge. And he is an Olympian god.
Yeah.
In some ways, I actually kind of understood why they did. I mean, there are gameplay reasons why they wouldn't. You know, there's only so many. You've only got so much time to develop a game. Only so many resources. Cutting down the number of boons that Zag could get to a certain number would mean cutting out certain gods, and that makes sense. But also, most of the other gods don't like Hades or don't like Hephaestus. They treat him like crap, and they don't really want to associate him.
Yeah.
So to me, it made sense that he got left out.
Or he's just not. I think like because Aphrodite has a line at some point in time where she mentions being married, and she's like, "Yeah, my husband is really busy with his projects." And you just get the sense that he's like too busy for her or anyone. So really, they could be calling him, and he's just like, it's all going to voicemail. He's too busy building an automaton. So yeah, I think Hephaestus, and maybe plus Daedalus does. I think DJ mentioned earlier, Daedalus hammers does what I think Hephaestus would do essentially.
Yeah, it would be about the same mechanic wise.
For me, I think we know Apollo is going to be in the next game because he's been in the trailer, and I think that was a surprise one because that's another one of the main Olympians, and like Artemis's twin brother who's not there. But for me, I really want to see Hera and Hestia. I want to see the other two original goddesses. And they're mentioned. The fact that they are mentioned, like we have their weapons, and Demeter mentions that Hera and Hestia are her sisters. They work really hard. Hera, Hestia, and Demeter in this game are not daughters of Kronos like the gods are. They are daughters of a different Titan entirely. So we get rid of the incest thing with Hades and Persephone. But I would love to see them because Hestia is one of my favorite goddesses in general. So I want to see her. And yeah, I just really like the game, and I'm excited to. I want to be, and also I'm just really excited to be Melanoe. I'm so excited to be like my favorite obscure goddess is Melanoe, and so I was so jazzed to see her in the game. Yeah. DJ,
I'm excited for the weapons. Let's see. For this game, I kind of wanted to see more chthonic gods.
Mm.
You know, and like obviously we're gonna see Hecate in the next game.
Mhm.
I don't know. I like a lot of the underworld gods that are just featured. I wish we had seen Styx. I mean, we saw the river, right? But
Yeah.
Oh,
would have
seeing
been
Styx would be
neat.
cool. The
Yeah.
Fates, maybe?
Yeah, the Fates.
Fates.
They're mentioned, but we don't get to see them. I think it would have been neat if it would have been instead of like this fucking list, we go and actually talk to the Fates.
They're hanging out,
And
yeah.
they're hanging out in some like, weird trial courtroom looking thing, but
Well, no, I want them. Okay, well, they're the spinner.
weave.
They're
They
spinner.
weave. Yeah.
So I want them to be in like a craft room, like a very, very cluttered craft room.
Big fucking loom on the wall that they're just
Yeah, and
constantly looking at.
Yeah, I
and
wanna
like
say-
the loom is recently what you died to.
Yes, you can see it's everyone has a weaving of the most recent death. Oh, that'd be really cool. I want to say real quick that I don't think it's necessarily bad that we have other characters in mythology mentioned but not seen. Like I don't think that's a weakness or a shortcoming. I think it makes the world feel I think it makes the world feel fuller.
Yes. It makes it to where like the world is still acting outside of what's going on here.
Yes, what happens here is not the most important thing in the world actually.
Well, and I mean, when you're making a story, and especially when you're making a game, a lot of times less is more. You know, if you did try and include every single god and every single person in mythology that was in here, that would mean less time and story could be devoted to the individual ones. So by limiting the number of characters that are actually in here, we're allowed to devote more of our development resources to those characters and make them better.
For real.
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
What about you, Rob? Any like Greek mythology ones you'd like to see?
I mean, I was a little bit disappointed that I didn't get to fight Hercules at some point.
True.
But maybe next time.
Actually, I love it. That's how Zag gets under Theseus' skin the first time. Because the way it goes out is like he goes,
"Really, Theseus, not Hercules?
Not Hercules? He's not here? Weird."
At one point when you show up with the spear, Theseus would be like, "Oh, a spear? That's so impressive. I have one," because he has one too, right? And he's like, "Oh, this belongs to Achilles. He's much more famous than you."
Or when
like, Zach,
when you ask Asterius for his autograph and fucking
because Hypnos wants
like, it. Like Theseus like, "Well, surely you want mine too." He's like, no,
I'm good."
I'm good.
Listen, Zagreus is truly a god because he is also a petty bitch.
Very true. He's Hades' son.
Yeah, he's a petty bitch. With that, I think that's everything.
Ooh.
I don't have anything more on this. With that being said, our next episode for this will be available for our next podcast. Will be available on May the 19th. I want to thank everybody for coming in there, and I want to do this again for Hades 2 when it comes out.
Absolutely.
Because that was super fun. And it might be a while because I'd have to beat or get close to the end of Hades 2, and that's going to be hard. If Hades 1 is the entryway, Hades 2 is going to whip me. It would be good.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope so.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, well, you drop difficulty in sequels, right? Like it happens a lot, and I'm like, oh, come on.
I hope they don't, honestly.
Yeah,
I want to work my way up to this.
It's hard to say because has Supergiant even done a sequel to any of I think this might be the first one.
They have not.
No.
This is the
It's their
first one.
Where that is a legit sequel to a game. So, but I guess we'll see how they handle it.
Yeah, I got a 50-50 shot on this. They're either gonna.
I think it's going to be great.
I think it's going to be great though.
Yeah.
Because even if they put in like half the care that they did for this game, it's still going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, this is Gaming Theater Podcast logging out. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Gaming Theater Podcast is hosted, created, produced, and edited by Leo Garcia, the Geek Scorpio. Our music is A Drinking Game. Stock media provided by Stormwave Audio /Pond5. If you want to send us some financial support to help with producing things for Gaming Theater, you can do so at patreon.com/gamingtheaterpresents. It helps us out. Want to send support that doesn't hit your wallet? Please leave a review with wherever you hear your podcasts and share our podcast with your friends. It really helps out. Thank you for listening.